I know you all miss me. It's me, Geoff, from This Week in Mormons. I'm here again, singing a song that's likely off the beat with whatever song I started the episode with, because I don't know what I'm starting it with yet. Welcome to TWIM, everybody. I've never done an intro like that, and this is the 426th time, so it's 26, so.
And you probably have 200 more unique intros in you, Geoff.
Sure. So, that's Kurt Francom of
Hey
Leading
guys,
Saints.
Someday I'll be worthy enough to do the intro.
So, should we start over? Okay, ready? Ready, Kurt? Here we go. Ready? Just go ahead. Give it to everybody. Ready? 1, 2, 3, go.
Hey everyone, welcome back to the This Week in Mormons podcast.
We're not a podcast, it's a show.
Okay, all right. Hey, listen.
Stupid thing. What a stupid thing to say. What a stupid, idiotic thing to say.
I don't know what you're alluding to. I have no idea.
Oh, you know with whom you have made your
You
bets.
can only say that if you listen to it every week, so you must listen to it every week, Geoff.
Absolutely. I listen to so many podcasts throughout the week.
What are your go-to, by the way, this is Kurt Francom with Leading Saints, and have the opportunity to co-host here with Geoff, who is the grandfather of all Latter-day Saint podcasts, and the real host of this podcast.
Yes, and this is Geoff Openshaw, the real host of this podcast. Mm-hmm. The grandfather, the great-grandfather.
Right.
I am immaculate.
You're it. So I want to know, Geoff, what are your go-to, never missed an episode Latter-day Saint podcasts? And, of course, Leading Saints goes without saying.
Leading Saints.
I know for a fact you don't.
I straight up, I listen to Leading Saints more than my own show, because I rarely listen to my own show after we publish them. So I don't want to get you too excited. That's setting the bar very low. It's like a 0 to a 1. No, I'm just kidding. But you are the LDS podcast I listen to the most.
Okay. Any others, or is that it?
I'm thinking.
What about, or maybe we can go with, just podcasts in general. Do you have
I'm thinking here. What other LDS podcasts do I listen to? I don't really listen to any other ones. Nope. Kurt, you've taught me everything I need to know about leadership. You're basically the official resource of the church in this capacity. The way that you find leaders and cater exclusively to them and really usurp the capabilities of the church itself when it comes to leadership. You're everything I need.
Well, for the record, I'm not the official source, just in case my local leadership is listening, which I know they're not, Geoff.
I loved it, Kurt, when we had that one meeting and you said, man, I talk to local leadership sometimes and they're so myopic and don't get what we're doing here. I can't wait until the revenue stream really kicks in.
Why are you doing this to me?
I don't know. I'm bored. My family's out of town. I'm busting chops.
It seems like every time I record with you, your family's out of town. Are things okay in the Openshaw household?
They're not bad. Yeah, they're well enough that I let my wife have her space, man. Maybe you could learn about that.
Oh.
All right? You're always going to your wife saying, give me a massage, woman. That's what she wants to do every day after doing it professionally, because that's what she wants, Kurt. That's what she wants.
Well, I need a massage. What can I say?
So do I, but you don't see me getting one.
You got to marry the massage therapist. So.
I guess. Okay, other podcasts I listen to. I'm looking at my Google Podcasts app. Which
is something playing? I hear audio.
What is playing? Oh, it's your show. It started on my phone for some reason.
It's my show?
Floundered in my 20s.
It's how I lead.
Oh, yeah, Kari Rapi.
Yeah.
Let me
started. Anyway, we
go ahead.
Got Leading Saints, other shows I listen to, How I Built This American Life sometimes, The Daily, The Science of Social Media, Pod Save the World, Bucket with Phil Kogan, 99% Invisible.
Huh. So I how
but
many
I
podcasts?
Literally listen to very few of those on a regular basis.
Okay. So I monitor various podcasts since I'm in that. That's just what I do. I don't listen to all of them, but there are some interesting Latter-day Saint podcasts out there. Have you ever listened to the LDS Life podcast? A very interesting character.
Is it related to This Mormon Life?
No. That's
because that was a show once.
It was.
What happened to you, Grady? Where'd you go? Now he's doing ads for razors or something. I don't know what's going on with him. The facial things, not the scooters.
And I recently came across one called Faith Promoting Rumors, and it's actually really well produced, but they just fell off the map in
Now, I'm
February of 2018. It's sad.
Based off of the name, I'm assuming the idea was were they sort of assessing the fact that we love our faith promoting rumors and why that's an issue.
Yeah,
that seems like a cool premise.
I mean, they'll tell stories. They did one like on green Jello. They did one on
how is that faith promoting?
Well, they just sort of talk about interesting cultural perspectives of our church.
So they're not actually talking about faith promoting rumors?
They do some like they talked about like beards and whether beards are apostate or not. And of course we know they're apostate.
Well, yeah, I mean, as one would have it, yeah.
About Mormons and horns and things. Anyways, it's really well produced, but then they just disappeared. I guess you can only do podcasting so long until you realize there's no money in it.
Well, I mean, you know. It's a lot of LDS podcasts come and go. There are the true believers, but I mean, this is the 10th season of TWIM. Yeah, this is the 10th season, folks. 10 years.
Nice.
Other than like monkeys like John Dehlin or whatever, show me the LDS podcast with greater longevity
that hasn't resulted in excommunication.
One more season, and look, I'm at as many seasons of Friends. One more season, I'll hit Frasier territory. 2 more seasons will be at the Big Bang Theory, which I know a lot of you weirdos probably enjoyed. So,
I haven't seen one episode of the Big Bang Theory.
If I go 13, I think that takes me into some other crazy place like Cheers, or I don't even know what. MASH, probably.
The Simpsons.
Anyway, that I don't think I can do because I'm convinced it's never going to go off the air. Though now that Disney owns The Simpsons.
Whoa, when did that happen?
Okay, time for This Week in Media. Well, it's still TWIM.
And that's interesting because the church owns Disney, so now the church owns The Simpsons.
The church does not own Disney, but
there's many mothers of the 90s that are very upset right now.
The church does own a stake in Burger King, though. So I like to think it's the church is doing that. We're getting those Impossible Burgers nationwide. That's the church trying to get us to eat meat sparingly. So they're pushing that, right?
Nice.
Talk about faith promoting rumors, my friend.
There it is.
Anyway, real quick, because Disney bought most of the properties from 20th Century Fox. Not all of them. You know,
so that was in the deal, huh?
Fox is one of the big classic movie studios, right? Disney bought the movie studios. They bought most of their properties, but the things they didn't buy were Fox News, the Fox Broadcast Network, and like Fox Sports, which have been spun off into the Fox Corporation. Those ones stay alone. But all the film and television production studios that were part of Fox are now owned by Disney. So not only has The Simpsons aired on Fox, it's been produced by 20th Century Fox Studios, and Disney now owns that. So now they own Disney. They even tweeted after the deal was finalized. The deal was finalized only about a month ago. And Disney sent a tweet that said, "Welcome to the family," and it was a picture of The Simpsons, which to me is weird. It's weird to see those two brands as one.
So we're going to have to see like Bart Simpson walking around Disneyland? Is that?
I would think not. I mean, they're still keeping the 20th Century Fox brand alive. Like Fox is still releasing movies, but it's just that presumably now, like when you see, the classic 20th Century Fox title card when you go in the movies, that whole thing. When they were owned by Time Warner, for example, it would say like a Time Warner or an AOL Time Warner company. Maybe now at the bottom it'll say a Walt Disney Company or something like that. But they'll still release movies that way. It would make sense because Disney for a long time had 2 other labels. They had Touchstone for slightly more adult fare and Hollywood Studios, which was another imprint they used for like R-rated movies and stuff like that. So they might just keep
way
Fox
too
around.
Much about all this, Geoff.
Yeah, man. Media studies. Woo!
Nice.
That's all for This Week in Media, folks. How is your life otherwise, Kurt? How is Leading Saints? Just bring us up to date.
Life is good. I'm in the midst of my intense caricature week. As many of you may know, I'm a caricature artist as well. You can follow me at Draw You Funny on Instagram. And so I go to these high school senior all-night parties, and I draw caricatures in the middle of the night for 4 or 5 hours.
That's called grad night. It has a name.
I don't think we use that term.
In Utah, they call it high school senior all-night parties. Given the
Senior
the
all-night
lengthier-
parties. Yeah.
The lengthier nomenclature we've been embracing as a church, we're no longer investigators. You are people being taught. We are now Latter-day Saints of the restored gospel of truth and righteousness or whatever. It would make sense that Utah wouldn't just say grad night, but you would say all-night senior party.
Party of youth age individuals that some may include to be members of the Church of Jesus Christ of Latter-day Saints.
But to be fair, do they do it post-graduation, or is it a party before any of that actually happens?
No. So basically the intent of this is to occupy the seniors so that they do not go out and do something stupid in a celebratory fashion. So they bring them to the school, or they do
But is it after, have they graduated by this point? Or
yeah, so it's the same day as graduation.
So it is. So it's grad night. Okay.
Yeah, it's grad night. You could call it grad night. Okay. And so I go there and I draw the students funny, and they love it, and I'm tired, and then I sleep in till about noon, and then I'm foggy the rest of the day, and then I have to go back the next day. So I'm going tonight to Woods Cross High, and then the following night I'm going to the Viewmont High party, and then I sleep. And so that's what I'm doing, and of course the same leading saints fare that I do. And I must say that if you're listening to this, I'm releasing an episode on June 1st.
Oh boy.
It's probably one of my favorite episodes. It was remarkable.
Okay, who's it? Can you come on, tell us?
So I interviewed that's not teaser enough. So I interviewed a former YSA stake president. His name is Rob Farrell.
Oh, I wish I could have been on this interview, but continue. I'll tell you why.
Okay, and he had so many mic drop moments. I finally just had to hold the mic for him. Okay, he was just off the hook.
Really klutzy.
Yeah, he had a great perspective, very articulate, has such a unique perspective on the whole repentance process, on how he handled it, as far as removing shame, and, he talked about early return missionaries, and on, and marriage, and focusing on marriage in YSA wards, and how that can be just awful. Yeah. So what's your commentary about YSA, Geoff?
Well, my thesis is this, Kurt. YSA stakes are stupid. That's my thesis. They're dumb. They shouldn't exist. I believe they are a product of, once again, ruling from a Utah perspective. And even in Utah, I don't think they're the best idea, but I think they're an even worse idea in places that are not as densely Latter-day Saint. I think it's a dumb idea. I haven't checked in a while of the full distribution of because basically all the YSA stakes are pretty much in the Mormon corridor. There's some in Utah, there's some in Arizona, there's some in Idaho. But they do have one here in D.C. that they organized a couple years ago because there's enough. But D.C. might be the only one that's even east of the Rockies as far as YSA stakes. They're stupid. What is the point of this? We tell young single adults, you're part of this. We care about you. We want you to be part of the church. We want you to be engaged. And then you do things like this to completely segregate them. It's one thing to have a YSA ward, which I think it's good. I'm pro singles ward in general, even though they've got detractors. There's things you can.
So you like the singles ward concept as long as it's within a group of traditional wards in a stake.
I do, yeah, because I don't mind singles wards because the leadership comes from your existing stake, and it still gives you a chance to serve in the stake. When I was in a stake, the same stake that I got married in, and in which I was in a singles ward where I met my wife, a lot of YSAs in the stake. We had 2 YSA wards, and now it still has 2 YSA wards and 2 mid-singles wards in the stake, or that were in the stake. Now they're in the YSA stake, as well as a couple of family wards that had very high YSA populations. But what I liked about it is it gave people a chance to serve. You had people in my singles ward who were called to be part of youth conference, to be on the council, to go to girls camp. You had men who were high counselors that were in the singles ward. They were involved, and for me, it made me feel like we were part of the stake. I did not feel like I was a people apart, living my own little life, and like it didn't matter. And I appreciated that because I think it let me have more investment in the church in general. Because the whole point, of course, is you want to get married and move along. And so when we got married, we were still in the same stake, and I met new people in that ward, of course. But then I still knew the stake president, and I knew all these different people. And I thought it was much better. Much, much better. I just think it's so exclusive and weird, and especially outside of Utah, they wind up being geographically sprawling, at least for the one out here, way too big. So you've got counselors plucked from, like the DC one covers, all like 8 million people in the greater DC area. It doesn't make any sense. I mean, why would you want to travel that much? Why would you want to have wards that are that disparate? I don't see the value in it. I think there's much more value for YSAs to be within their ward and have that camaraderie and develop those relationships, and then also know the people in their stake where they live, as opposed to some sort of notion that you're all going to band together as YSAs when there's people that are in a ward that's literally 30 miles away from you. And it's great that you make those friendships, but how does that help you like build Zion and lift where you stand in the grand scheme of things? I don't think it serves a purpose. I think they're dumb. I do not get them. I'd love to hear the pro arguments. Please do. I mean, I guess if you do have a stake that's all singles wards, presumably the whole High Council is composed of YSAs? Or do they bring those in from the...
They bring them in just like bishoprics.
So they're basically saying, you are children, you cannot lead in the stake. We will guide you, and you just come to church and scratch backs and blah, 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 and have a good time.
That's what you've got to listen to this episode, Geoff, because he makes an argument that he wanted to call YSAs to the High Council, and he actually did call his full stake Relief Society presidency were young single adults, women. So that was pretty cool.
Well, good. And then good on him. I mean, if they have the flexibility to do that.
Yeah, I get the overall thought. And I guess so, but would there be like, if you did say, okay, no stake, but would the wards, like in the DC area, would they have to cover areas outside of the traditional stake?
Outside of which traditional stake?
Well, just like if you went to DC and dissolved the stake and then just put all the wards, let's say there's 8 wards in that stake.
The YSA stake, okay.
And you put each ward in a traditional stake, would it fit? Would the boundaries be identical, or would they have to...
Like would all those, what you mean with all the wards that currently constitute the YSA stake then be in just one stake anyway?
Right. Or would it have to overlap to other traditional
No, of course not. For the most part, especially outside of Utah, I would say on average, the typical, before they started creating YSA stakes, the typical stake had one singles ward or branch in it, if it had one at all. For those that had them, it was usually one each. DC's a little bit more dense, so it had more than that. New York also has 3 or 4 singles wards, last I checked, and that's all one stake. But for the most part, it's like one per stake. And even though my stake had the 2, the other wards just had 1. And so the whole stake is composed of a bunch of wards that were plucked from all these stakes, of which there's 8 stakes or something like that scattered around the area to make up this one whole stake. It's not like they're all just like there together anyway. Yeah, so it's...
So should we protest, Geoff? Should we march on Temple Square?
Yes. I think that'd be pretty funny, actually. I wonder if we can get in the news.
Get some media attention.
How do I get Peggy Fletcher Stack to cover that?
There'd be random, ex-Latter-day Saints just showing up like, where's my sign? Let's do this, guys.
I'd go on like Exmo Reddit and tell them what was going on. Be like, look, guys, I know this is a little out of your lane right now, but if you could just come for the numbers alone.
Let's do this.
And then lie and say, like, I left the church because of YSA stakes. Too far?
There you have it. There you have it.
Well,
we're taking up a lot of time, Geoff, because it is a slow news week.
I mean, it's not
Latter-day Saint.
There have been faster weeks. There
have been. We haven't had a good solid Friday news drop, or announcement.
I think now, I don't know, how quiet will it be? It's summertime now. We're a couple of months removed we're almost 2 months out from conference at this point, so.
And all the general authorities are going on vacation in July, so they have about 4 weeks to drop something. So maybe they just waited out till August.
So we'll see if we get a June surprise.
Yeah.
Well, I'll give you one of those at least. One of those. They very quietly announced yesterday that the church is going to demolish 5 buildings at the Provo Missionary Training Center, 5 of the old ones, and replace it with a plaza garden, statuary, and quiet study places.
This is our lead story, folks. Can you see it's a slow news week? So
look, this is serious stuff. All right. Now, if it's only interesting because if you follow the saga of all of this, I believe these are basically. I should go on Google Maps real quick. These are, I think, some of the 5 central buildings. They're all 5 stories tall or so, right there in the middle of the campus.
This is where those tall buildings were proposed to go, right?
Yeah, well, I think it was just one tall building back when. But yeah, exactly. You've got it. Where is it? That's Riverwoods. I'm too far north, Jeff. Go down. University. There we are. Okay. Missionary Training Center. So 5 buildings. Now, Google Maps does not have the new buildings yet. What's up with that, Google? Come on. So I can't tell which 5 they're going to be, because if you look at the old map, there's like 7 or 8 of them that are kind of that old same size, but they're taking out 5 of them, and they're just going to put in a plaza. And like you said, yes, the MTC goes right up against a neighborhood, right there. And years ago, it's been a long time actually. I think we covered this in a podcast, like, when was
2014?
2012, 7 years ago.
Wow.
7 years ago, our 102nd episode entitled Liahona Roo talked about this. And the church wanted to put up this big, reasonably tall tower in the middle of the MTC to make everything happen. Let's see if we can find the story. Paragraph. Daylight Missionary. Where'd it go? I don't know. It's funny looking at the old stories here. City Creek opens. First YSA stake outside of Utah. Hey, we just talked about that. There we go.
It's coming back to haunt
Huge
you.
MTC building. I wonder if this story is still even up on the Trib. So, yeah, it was going to be tall. I think it was at least 10 stories tall. Maybe 9.
And so they're going to put some, is it going to be like a park inside of the MTC?
It sounds like it's going to be something like that. So instead of building their 9-story tall building that they wanted to put in, and all the neighbors, in a big bit of Provo drama, were not happy with this because there was sort of a gentleman's agreement when the MTC went in. This is this whole saga where the church said, yeah, we're not going to build any buildings that are too tall, so you won't destroy any sight lines, have a big complex looming over your backyard, whatever it may be. And the residents were like, cool, like we love the church, but thank you for respecting encroachment upon our neighborhood. And then when they did this, it's funny because you have active Latter-day Saints who want the MTC to give the missionaries what they need, but you had them attending city council meetings in Provo, pushing against the church's plan. You don't get this a lot because we have such a, if the church says I need to put a big building here, we usually just say, well, you do you, church. We love the work. Good times. So instead you have active Mormons going against the church and saying, no, don't put this here. And the church backed off. And now, as you said, instead they're going to tear down all those buildings and now just to be replaced with gardens and reflective spaces. Because they have the newer, taller, fancier buildings over by the old printing facility and the laundry facility. They put in a couple of years
buildings.
Ago. They are nice, so I guess they can afford it.
So
it's a big
this
change.
is their effort to make it feel less like a prison, maybe.
Maybe
Have a place to walk and smell the roses, quite literally.
Well, Google really needs to update this, though, man. I'm looking at this old 3D map, and it's still got this does not have the elongated driveway. You know how now that long driveway comes far in for the drop off? You know what I'm talking about? The big turnaround? Yeah, none of that's on Google Maps right now. Very sad. Someday I'll be very upset when I have to. Don't they not even let you get out of the car now when you drop off your missionary?
I think they generally they allow you, but they don't want you to expect that. So you have to go across the street where there's just this parking lot of crying people.
Yeah, that's what I've heard. You're supposed to go over there and say your goodbyes, and then just awkwardly drive across the street and say, "All right, get out of the car, kid."
Is there a better way to do this? Like, what would you do, Jeff, if you?
I would
king for a day.
I would troll them and start saying goodbye in the parking lot, and then say, "You know what? We're in a parking lot literally across the street from where you're going. Why don't we all just use our legs and walk across the street together and bid you farewell?"
Security will have your face on concrete so
Think
fast.
about this. The church is therefore promoting the consumption and burning of fossil fuels unnecessarily by forcing people to get into a car to drive up and wait in line and drop people off. You have pollution problems in Utah, everybody. And right here, this is not helping. I bet, I defy you to do the science on this and not see that there is some sort of ozone hole or pollution bubble cloud that hangs over the MTC every Tuesday.
Well, Jeff, speaking of pollution, let's talk
like-
politics, shall we?
It's your favorite topic. Tell me about the thing.
So church assigns specialists to help with political participation.
That seems
So this is interesting. And the Salt Lake Tribune is not excited about this because the GOP will take over and shut them down. No, it's not going to happen. But so from what I understand, there's going to be I don't think it's going as far as it being like a calling. Is that what you understand? This is just an assignment. Maybe will the bishop approach somebody and say, "Sister Jones, we appreciate your random passive-aggressive political comments in Sunday school. Why don't you put those to use, and we're going to assign you to galvanize the neighborhood to go vote."
Yeah, I mean, you're supposed to register people to vote, request mail-in ballots, attend their party caucus meetings. That's a very Utah thing, everybody. Not every state has a caucus, so once again, but this is...
You could take a camera to the MTC parking lot across the street. That's another place to take a camera, is those caucus meetings. They get exciting. Have
you ever been to one?
Of course I have. I'm active in I have been a delegate. You want to know? I've been a state delegate. Okay, this is how it happened. This is back when I lived in South Salt Lake and the boundaries were crazy and we're inner city. I show up. There's 3 people there. We didn't have enough to divvy out all the assignments, and we sort of looked at each other and they said, "Hey, you want to be a state delegate?" I said, "Sure, I'll be a state delegate." And there I was at the state delegate
That was a great
meeting.
story. I was there and they're like, "Hey, you want to do this thing?" And you're like, "Well, yeah, sure, why not?" I mean,
so anyways.
Well, that's exciting. Yeah, I think this is by assignment. This is not a calling, as far as I know.
And it's going to be all over the place, right? Or is it just Utah?
It does not specify. Obviously, Utah will be more of a hotbed for this kind of thing. I just think it's interesting because, of course, as the Trib goes out of its way to say that the Democrats are afraid this is only going to sort of deepen how Republican the state is, because you'll have, Latter-day Utah, of course, is very, very conservative. Of the non-Latter-day Saint population, more liberal, and there's more liberal people who are also Latter-day Saints. But if you mobilize just the Latter-day Saint force, they worry that it's going to be overwhelmingly Republican-leaning people who will be trying to get others to engage in the political process, and even if not deliberately, it will sort of.
Yeah. And I guess I just don't understand, as an organization, the church would find it in their best interest, especially in Utah. Obviously, a lot of the laws and legislation impact them as an organization, and obviously that's a whole other discussion. But to have they want to have as many members go vote regardless of where they stand. But it just so happens to be that the vast majority of them are going to fall on the GOP line, right?
Yeah. I'm very curious how this is going to shake out.
And there's going to be somebody over a pulpit or whatever that is.
Well, and that's the point. Apparently, the letters from the pulpit every year, where we get letters, or at least every political season, reminding us to vote and all that. And maybe that's not enough. Maybe we are, unlike you, we're not all delegates, but maybe the everyday Latter-day Saint folk are not civically engaged as they should be.
Yeah.
I don't know.
Well,
I had an interesting discussion in Ward Council this past week where it came basically because Virginia is an open carry state where I live, which I often forget because living in the D.C. suburbs, everything just kind of feels D.C. and we forget that we're still in Virginia, the whole rest of the state. And most of Virginia doesn't consider us very Virginian, which is fair. So every now and then when I see open carry things, I forget oh yeah, you can do that here.
Do you see people open carry?
Not a ton. It's more when you'll see some businesses have signs up that prohibit it. And you remember, oh yeah, that's legal in the state. And a business can therefore say, don't do it. And I think the point is people forget that the church officially in the handbook does not allow weapons inside chapels. And we had a bit of an interesting aside in Ward Council where some people were talking about, especially women, talking about their husbands who were like, don't tell my husband he can't carry his weapon to church. And I'm like, and it's funny because we all pick apart things that we don't want to obey as Latter-day Saints. Like we do.
Right.
And to me, it's easy because I'm not super into firearms. So if they say no open carry, I'm like, yeah, dang right. I don't want to, And the reason this came up is because we had a there was a letter. We had some counsel about being safe at church. You know, there's been some shootings recently, people like in churches, like that guy who came in and just straight up just shot a guy in the middle of a sacrament meeting.
Yeah.
Even though it wasn't like a Mormon hate crime, it was. Anyway, they want us to be safe. So everyone said, well, you know, should we have weapons with us? And I'm like, well, the handbook says no. I'd take the anti-Nephi-Lehi route and bury your weapons of war and hope for the mercy of the active shooter. No one listens to me.
Yes, the handbook is pretty clear. So they were sort of advocating that we should maybe act like that's not in the handbook.
Maybe. I think there's some who basically would just assume not be told that that's in the handbook.
Gotcha.
I mean, I get it. I'd also assume that the handbook doesn't tell me that hypnotism is bad. Because who doesn't want to go to a hypnotist show? I mean...
I always think of that. When I go to these high school parties, they always have a hypnotist.
Yeah, and you sit there and think, you poor wayward Latter-day Saint.
And they're like, you guys should ask your bishop about this. This is very much discouraged.
Okay, I will literally donate $100 to Leading Saints if you somehow document breaking from your drawings, if this happens, and you say, excuse me, everyone, excuse me, and you stop the hypnotist, and then read to them from Handbook 1 and tell them what it says.
I would if I don't have access to Handbook 1 anymore.
You know you can find it. And I feel like when you've previously had access to Handbook 1, you're grandfathered into being allowed to look at it into perpetuity.
I wish they'd allow that, but that's not.
It's on Scribd, buddy. It's not hard to find.
Are you going to link to it in the show notes, Geoff?
No, I would never link to it in the show notes. Now, they could remove it because now it's all digital. Maybe they'll take that out. But last time I checked, it's still in there. Yeah. No hypnotism for you. Okay, a couple quick mentions as we chug along here. They've revealed the location of the Saratoga Springs, Utah temple, also known as the Mia Love Honorary Temple.
Why do you say that?
She was mayor of Saratoga Springs before.
Well, yeah, but
Congress. That's literally
the only reason.
That's all I've got.
It's like there's some backroom deals happening to get a temple there.
But what I love is like the picture that shows the temple location. It shows this inverse silhouette of a temple overlaying over a picture of just a giant farm circle. This is where it's going to be, folks. That farmer has stopped running that long giant pole that goes in a circle to water stuff, and the temple.
It's called a pivot, Geoff.
I don't know what it's called.
I married a farm girl. I know this.
Well, I'm a coastal elite, so I don't know these things.
Oh my goodness.
Okay.
Oh my goodness.
Anyway, so they announced it back in 2017. It's going to be pretty big, though. It surprised me. 87,000 square feet, which is that's large. We don't get many temples that big nowadays. That's good size. I'd say nowadays a big temple will be in the 50s, maybe, but 87 is not messing around at all.
Big cafeteria, Geoff. They got to get a big cafeteria.
And that's the thing. I don't think they'll have one. I mean, cafeterias are no longer in vogue. They don't.
The DC temple has one, right? Are they going to keep that?
The DC temple has had a cafeteria, but, like in the basement level is where it's been, but it hasn't been used for many years as a full service cafeteria. It's basically just vending machines. And then you can see all the little serving areas that are no longer used. So I'm assuming with the renovation right now that that's just going to get kicked out. And I have no idea.
The strangest thing. I mean, now that I think about it, like many times I've eaten, I've got my tote tray in the temple picking out which slice of pie I want. It's awful strange, but I guess that was a thing in the 60s, right? It
went up for a while though. Like when I was fresh off my mission, I was a veil worker in the Los Angeles temple. And they still had the fully active cafeteria. I don't know if they still do now, because this was all before Newport Beach and Redlands were dedicated, so I'm not sure. But I would go there. I had to get up really early and drive up there and beat traffic and stuff. I'd grab a bowl of cereal or some cake. I don't know. It was fun. Why not? So I don't think they'll have one. Either way, we don't know the design of the Saratoga Springs Temple. That will be made public later. We don't have groundbreaking dates or anything like that, but we do know that it's going to be located in the new Beacon Point subdivision, west of Redwood Road and north of Meadowside Drive.
Boom.
Huzzah.
Think they'll include a Mia Love statue, Geoff?
I hope so.
On the grounds or something?
Yeah, I hope so. But as many expected, Saratoga Springs is kind of an unwieldy city geographically. You have sort of the fat northern part that just is next to Lehigh, and then it trickles down along the western shore of Utah Lake. But the temple is going to be up more in the populated area. This could have very well been the Lehigh temple, essentially. It's going to be up there with all that stuff. Sadly, not way down in the subdivisions, which would be cool looking across the lake and having a temple on the hill.
Nice.
But if you do remember 2007, that hill on mountain on the other side gets lit on fire sometimes, so maybe not the best.
Well, they'll protect it, Geoff. The Lord will protect it for sure. Where are we going next, Geoff?
I don't care, man. I don't care one bit. One iota.
President Nelson meets Tongan monarchy. That's cool. I mean, I guess he's done with that, Kurt. His recent tour, right?
I believe the Pacific Rim tour is over now. Well, just Pacific tour. Pacific Rim tour would be great. All the kaiju and the fighting, the robots.
Right.
He hit up a lot of places. The big news, of course, is when he met with Jacinda Ardern over in New Zealand, which the sisters talked about on last week's podcast. But he met the Tongan monarchy. It's a bigger deal than you realize, only because the king and queen's son converted to the church a few years ago.
Oh, it was their son, huh?
It was their son, and there was a bit of drama with that. He actually wanted to join the church even years prior, and the king dispatched guards to stop the baptismal service from happening.
That's
like they weren't
nice.
messing around. And it's fun. People don't realize Tonga is the most LDS country in the world.
Yeah.
It's like 60% baptized Latter-day Saints. I'm sure the activity rate does not quite reflect that, but it's because they just got their second temple announced.
Don't they have Liahona High? It's a Latter-day Saint high school there, I believe.
I guess so. Are we still doing that? I thought the church was getting out of the business of the various
Well, I don't know if they closed the high school, but anyways, it's interesting.
So he met.
But he got baptized. So will this son be king someday? Is that?
I don't know how their succession works. I would love it if he were, because then he'd straight up be the first Mormon head of state in the world,
and a king nonetheless.
And a king
to be a president,
which would be hilarious because the Book of Mormon is so anti-monarch.
Nice.
And just be up there, like, could you imagine the rallies when people are trying to convert Tonga to a republic? Let's start reading the Book of Mormon. It is better that you don't have a king, for kings, blah, blah. It could all be used against him very easily. Maybe that's why the king was upset, the current king. All right. The church has also updated some guidelines for hymn book submissions. Those of you who have been following this story, about a year or so ago, the church announced that they were going to work on a new hymn book. Time to update.
Do we have a date when this is going to be released, or?
I don't know when it's going to be released, but the deadline is in July, so it's coming up now, to either submit your own original compositions, which you can do, which is pretty cool, or you can provide simple feedback and vote on things that should be included in the hymn book. All of these are awesome. So they have expanded a little bit more, some fine tuning, as they call it, about what you should look for, what you should either submit or vote on. So the purposes are to increase faith in and worship of Heavenly Father and Jesus, teach core doctrine with power and clarity, invite joyful singing at home and at church, comfort the weary and inspire people to endure in faith, and unify Latter-day Saints and others throughout the world.
I'm going to make a prediction that the new hymn book is going to be 10% Mac Wahlberg.
I hope so.
Easy.
Easy. Unsurprisingly, the most voted in song at this point is Come Thou Fount of Every Blessing.
Do they have is this like a church poll they're taking?
There is. If you go to, we'll link to this with the show notes here for this episode. If you go there will be a link in the notes to the article that has the link. To the link.
You go through 10 links and then you'll get it.
It's really, it's web best practices right there. Anyway, yeah, you can vote. The vote's more open-ended. It asks you a couple of questions. If you look at our article, Kurt, it's right above the video near the end when it says, do me a solid. And it lets you, it doesn't have a list you choose from. You can just type in whatever you want.
Great SEO linkage. So
yeah, I'm sure it is.
Oh, wow. They got a little forming fill out. Yeah. What are your favorite hymns and children's songs? Are there additional existing hymns or children's songs that you would suggest for inclusion in the new worldwide collection?
Mm-hmm.
What currently included hymns or songs, if any, might be candidates to drop from the hymn book?
Praise to the man.
Or songbook. Praise. What general difficulties, if any, have you experienced while using a current hymn book or children's songbook? Let me tell you a story, Geoff. Let me tell you about the time I once truly presided as a bishop.
All right, hit me.
Our organist was not there, and so I asked some random member to come play, and so they didn't pick the hymns. We made it through 3/4 of the first verse when I finally stood up and said, I'm going to exercise my presiding power here, and we're going to sing a different hymn, because nobody knew how to sing this hymn. So whatever hymn that was, that should be removed. Anyways.
Do you think it would be useful for us to go back to the olden days when we used to actually have hymn practice after sacrament meeting? Especially with our shorter block.
What? Wasn't the point like to give teachers time to go to the material center and get their chalk?
I think even that's something worth considering. I mean, I don't know a primary president, for example, that does not bail during the closing hymn to get stuff ready. Because they just
10 minutes really not enough?
Well, it's not, because the kids go right in there and they want to be in there with some music going and setting the example of reverence. I don't think it's been years since I've not seen a primary president run out the door during the closing hymn. But it's true. I'd say, honestly, about half of the current English hymn book, I don't even think we know the songs. Yeah. There's 300-something songs in there, and I guarantee there's a ton we don't know. I mean, for funsies, Kurt,
Since we're not doing anything else, let's look it up.
Well, no, we're about 40 minutes in. We'll wrap this up. I'm just going to go to a random one, scrolling. Let's see here. Hymn number 262. Go, ye messengers of glory.
It's my favorite.
Does everyone know
Go
that
ahead
song?
And sing the first couple bars, Geoff.
I'm just going to allow the flash here, and then I will get my... Okay, this is going to be really janky, but we're going to listen to it right here on my microphone. Okay. Of glory, run ye the gates of the sun.
I'm not hearing any music. I'm just hearing like a cat in the background dying.
No one knows that song.
Nobody does.
So
nobody ever will, because they're going to drop it from the hymn book.
All right, Twim Nation, I want you all to go take the survey and find him, Go Ye Messengers of Glory, and call that one out for exclusion from the hymn book going forward, if you would, please.
And go vote.
Also, my tip, love divine, all loves excelling. That should be included. Thank you very much. All right. St. George Temple, man. I got a couple of temple stories. It's also going to be closed this year, they announced, for a serious renovation. President Nelson referenced this a while ago, that the pioneer temples would go down. We talked at some point in the past that the Salt Lake Temple plans have been revealed. I think you and I probably talked about that, Kurt.
Yep. Mm-hmm.
Redoing Temple Square, the whole thing. So now they've announced what's going to happen to the St. George Temple. It seems that they will be altering the grounds substantially and also changing the annex, because it's an older temple and it has a big old annex. And the new annex is like pretty big. I mean, the artist's renderings of it almost make it look like it's overpowering the original temple.
Is this, is that, it almost looks like a celestial room, doesn't it?
Yeah, kind of. I'm assuming that's just a nice little entrance. I know it won't be that bad in person, but what I do appreciate about the current annex, which is just a pretty simple, vaguely modern structure, it takes up a lot of square footage. I think it's bigger on straight floor plan than the temple itself, but it's low slung. It still lets the temple be the visible one getting the attention. Now, it's cool that the new annex is going to match more architecturally, but I worry that it's going to make the whole temple structure that is one look kind of weird.
Kind of weird. That's your assessment, huh? Well, I think you'll be pleased once you see it complete, Geoff.
I've only even been up to the St. George Temple once in my life. I usually see it from the freeway and say, oh, there it is.
There it is.
I should do a session there
sometime.
sometime.
Head to Vegas.
But the inside renderings look stunning. If you've seen these, it's once again, I haven't been in the St. George Temple. I'm assuming they're not going to do anything drastic because there's a lot of history there. With that said, though, the St. George Temple originally did not even have separated rooms. It had curtains and partitions and things like that. So it's not like it hasn't been renovated before. But this looks very beautiful. Benches instead of the flop-down seats, which I think is cool.
Mm. I love the benches.
That reminds me a bit of the Manti Temple. Have you done a session down in St. George?
I'm trying to remember if I have. I'm sure I have, but
I mean, I've never been in. I'm
can't
curious.
visually recall it.
Yeah. So it looks cool. I think it's going to be neat on the inside. It's going to close. It's going to be closed for about nearly 3 years, probably, while they do all of this. They couldn't have waited until
they got Cedar City.
Yeah, and then they've got that second temple that's supposed to go up in St. George, but they haven't started construction yet. They didn't time all of this very well. Same thing with D.C. They closed it down, and then they announced the temple in Richmond.
Is anybody even thinking about this stuff?
They should have built the temple in Richmond, then closed D.C., because it's way easier for me to go to Richmond than it is for me to go to Philadelphia. So it's in so many ways. I could day trip Richmond justifiably. It's easy. And other cool temple news, I really dig this article, and if you haven't read it yet, I encourage you to do so. So in J Weekly, which is the Jewish news of Northern California, the writer David Walensky got to tour the Oakland, California temple, which currently has an open house. It also had a lengthy renovation, but now it's coming back online, and it's open to the public for the first time in about 55 years. It's never been open since its original construction, which is a cool opportunity for anybody. So he was part of a media group. They got to go through the temple and have a tour conducted by none other than Elder Stevenson of the Quorum of the 12 Apostles. That would be pretty fun, I think. Just having a 12 show you around the temple, because why not? And this is a cool article because I like, it's pretty much a straightforward just rundown of what it was like to go to the temple, but showing so many of the analogs that we have and things about the temple that pull from, of course, the Old Testament tabernacle and temple lot, and how much that symbolism we really lean towards. I mean, I think the temple of all the places that we do worship is the most Old Testament-y of all of them, even though, of course, it focuses on Christ. And this is not lost on a Jewish Latter-day Saint. There are some good passages, too, where he kind of chuckles at, like, oh, what was it? There was this hilarious thing where someone...
The cafeteria, Jeff. He chuckled at the cafeteria.
No. So he said one of the so they were looking at the baptismal font, right? Typical baptismal font in a temple, the bronze oxen, all that stuff. So he says, quote, hilariously, one of the men leading the tour gestured toward me saying, as our Jewish friends will know, this is the molten sea described in 1 Kings chapter 7. Then he said, some church members seem to share a wild optimism about Jews' familiarity with the Bible. I don't think I know many who could tell you anything about 1 Kings chapter 7 off the top of their heads. But I see us just being classic friendly Mormons who were like, and our Jewish friends, and it seemed Elder Stevenson did the same.
Look, we're like you.
Yeah. But all in all, this is a cool article. It's a positive article. And it's great to see the Oakland Temple it's stunning on the inside. I think it has such a cool style compared to other temples. So give that a read.
I love just seeing with all these revamps of the temples, like the fact that they're, doing public tours and rededicating them, like, because there's so many people that just see this mysterious building for decades. And now it's like, well, you want to come in?
And the Oakland Temple, of course, is a famous landmark in the Bay Area. You can see it up on the hill. If you want to talk about faith promoting rumors, right? We talked about earlier. So there's an ongoing urban legend of sorts that says that pilots landing their planes at either San Francisco or Oakland's airport like to use the temple as a place marker. It's well lit at night, especially at nighttime. It's well lit. They can see it. They can get it. And then one time in California, because of rolling blackouts, whatever it was, there's always, power issues in the state. The church, trying to help out, turned the lights in the temple off at nighttime, which they don't like to do, but they did it because it saved power. And the story always goes that the pilots complained and said, hey, come on, we use that. It's an important thing for us to see. So that's the faith promoting story. Like, yes, this beacon, they need it. But I've heard this same story about the Bountiful Temple and the Salt Lake Airport. Not really Salt Lake, pretty much the Bountiful Temple and the Salt Lake Airport, the Draper Temple and the Salt Lake Airport. All these ones, you've heard this many places. I think there is some truth to the Oakland one compared to other ones, but this actually came up in some lesson when I was in Sunday school like a couple months ago. So I decided to Google it and to see if there was anything online about that story. And it was pretty funny how much there is.
Found the Snoops article?
Yeah, basically about Mormon Snopes, about basically just kind of saying this one's gone around a lot of times. So, it's because someone even said and I know pilots also, LAX use the Los Angeles Temple as a guide marker. And I'm like, okay, that's a load of crap. They absolutely do not. Because while you could see that temple on your approach, I'm sure, it's in the middle of Westwood. There's massive buildings on tall condos and office buildings on Wilshire all around it. There's a bajillion things going on. And so if you don't even know the temple is there, while you can see it, you would never use it as like.
There's one time those condos turned their lights off, Geoff, and the pilots complained.
And everyone's going to say, please, church, turn the temple lights back on. Please. We need it.
I love these rumors.
They're fun, aren't they?
Yeah. Let's continue to perpetuate them. I hope everybody listening, if you're a youth leader, tell that story in your next lesson.
All right, Kurt, you are one and the same, apparently. All right, what else do we have? We're 50 minutes in.
I think just some mentions. There's a great Muslim and Mormons video. There's an article about the Equality Act that if you can't sleep at night, you can read that. And
that actually could have been our top story, couldn't it?
Oh boy.
That was
Slow News Week.
That was
Jeff
an interesting
Borders,
article. The church came out against the Equality Act. The church came out against the Equality Act, but didn't really go into many details about the issues with it as written, other than it just wasn't enough for religious freedom. And so a writer at By Common Consent, who is a First Amendment lawyer, went into detail about, what are the religious exemptions we need, and what are the alleged religious freedoms under attack. It was compelling, not a perfect piece, of course, but I thought
it was compelling.
No, it really was, because we always act like our freedom to do these things is going to be under attack and rescinded, and it's just not. I don't believe it for a second that I'm going to lose my freedom to worship in the United States. I just don't. It's not going anywhere. It's fine. Anyway, continue with your mentions.
Let that be said. Jeff Borders, shout out to him. He's written some awesome articles for both This Week in Mormons and Leading Saints.
Whoa. I was told I had him on exclusive retainer. What the heck is this?
No, he's totally two-timing you.
You suck, Kurt.
So, and the choir's going on tour. Can't wait to get a T-shirt.
Where are they going?
Oh, they're going to Europe. They got places like, let me tell you, they got places like Stockholm, Helsinki, yes. Copenhagen.
Oh, yeah.
I mean, Jeff has been to all these places. Edinburgh. Edinburgh.
I'm sorry, how do you say that?
You say it. I knew it, Jeff. I knew I'd pronounce one wrong, and you jump all over me.
It's pronounced Edinburgh.
Edinburgh. This is why I stay
Edinburgh.
in the United States of America.
Yeah, they're going to go to Cardiff, Wales, Edinburgh, and the Nordic countries, Copenhagen and Oslo, Stockholm, and Helsinki. For the internationally minded, the reason they don't say Scandinavia is because Finland is not part of Scandinavia, but it is a Nordic country, if you wanted to know. If they cut it short of Helsinki, they could have said a Scandinavian tour, but
boom.
But then but Iceland is also sort of part of Scandinavia, so they'd have to go to Reykjavik, which has a very nice newish opera house they could have performed in. I'm just jealous. I mean, they're going to Edinburgh, man, which is where I went to grad school, and it's been a while, of course. But I would have loved to have Motab come to town when I was in grad school.
You can buy a plane ticket, Jeff.
I should. I haven't been back since I graduated, and that makes me very sad. They're
time.
They're gonna sing.
Or you could join the choir and then just get your flight paid for.
I could, except you see, the problem is that you have to live in Utah to be in the choir. They're performing. Where are they performing here? Usher Hall, huh? They're playing at Usher Hall? No way. Get out of town. Anyway, folks, I used to live right next to there. How fun. I could have walked to the show. My life is sad. Anyway, everybody, what a wonderful time it's been this week for the Mormons or the Latter-day Saints.
Let's pray for more news next week.
Yeah, we'll try to get this to you. I'm going to be out of pocket a little bit over the next handful of days. So hopefully nothing crazy happens, because I won't be able to cover it. But I'm going to do my best. And someone will be here maybe to talk about it with me. I try not to tax Kurt too much, you know.
Hey, I'm always happy to come, Jeff. Always happy to slide in the saddle here and share my opinion about random things.
Here's the thing.
It helps
Kurt.
When there's more news to talk about.
I don't feel like you share your opinion very much. I think you're just good at discussing what is. I don't know if we get a lot of opinion and commentary from Kurt. I think I would like to hear your true opinion on things.
Well, you got to ask me questions. What opinion do you want to know, Jeff? You won't like it, I'll promise you.
Have you asked me a single question during this show? No, I just talk unprovoked.
I'm sorry.
Don't be sorry. You ask questions on your podcast all day long, in and out. So.
That's right. I'm out of questions. I've used them all up. So,
well, anyways, we're gonna let Kurt go because I'm sure he's got to I don't know, hit the Red Bull or something for his long night at a high school.
Yeah, gotta go take a nappy nap.
Where a nappy nap is what he's going to go do. Everybody, this is Kurt Francom, who leads Leading Saints, an adult-oriented leadership podcast. Is going to take a nappy nap. It's going to be
That's right.
Good. Well,
I've got a 4-year-old in the house.
I don't blame you. I envy you on getting the nappy nap. That sounds delightful. Folks, please go to thisweekinmormons.com. Of course, you can see the show notes for this episode and links to the stories we've discussed. If you've never been to patreon.com, that's patreon.com/thisweekinmormons, you can be a patron if you think it's worth $1 a month to help us have what we have and be able to give it to you. That would be lovely. And, of course, join us on Facebook and Twitter and subscribe. I don't know how well it works when you beg to subscribe, but all podcasters do it. Subscribe, everyone, please. And iTunes or Google or wherever you get your podcasts, Spotify even, it's all there. Please subscribe to the show and leave a review if your subscription venue of choice allows you to do so. That would be dynamite for us. And do the same for Leading Saints. Kurt's crushing it.
That's right.
So help.
Don't miss this Sunday's episode, June 1st episode. You're going to love it.
By the way, when's is the tour still happening?
It is, it's going to be a close call if we can make that happen.
Okay. Sorry, I didn't know. I didn't. Okay. So folks, go on the tour with Kurt.
Yeah. In September, church tour, Kansas City to Sharon, Vermont, all the major church history sites. We're stopping there.
That's right.
It's going to be
half of the leadership on this tour is worth your time. The other half has no business doing anything, but you will enjoy Kurt's presence and it will be wonderful.
That's right.
For all involved. I'd like to thank all of you for taking the time to listen to us this week, and I hope you have a terrific rest of your weekend. So as we say, be safe out there, be well, be holy, and be happy. This Week in Mormons is out. I'm recording now. Test. What?
I'm a fast starter.
What is happening?